In this episode, I'll be delving into the background of how I've got into tarot, how I've got through my spiritual journey to where I am today. Welcome back to the Tech Talks and Soul Talks podcast with me, your host, Julie Kubiak. Now, when I was researching my background many years ago, I found out, and not 100% certain on names and dates here, but I actually found that my spiritual path goes back more generations than just myself and my immediate family. Annie Edgar, as she was born, then she changed her name to Annie Dees, and then Annie Whitmore, maybe one other name I'm not too certain of, who was my great-grandmother. She used to read tea leaves for the gentry back in the late 1930s. So we're talking nearly 100 years ago. And prior to that, don't know if anybody was into this kind of thing, but she was reading for the then Prince of Wales and his friends. She was also domestic for somebody who I don't know the name, but they were an importer and exporter of tobacco back in those days. And she used to read for his friends. And she was predominantly working in the Chelsea area of London. But I know people say anyone can do this, but I kind of feel that this is already in the family. So 100 years later, 90 odd years later, we're here. If anyone has watched my YouTube videos headed up Mystic Prosecco, Connecting with Spirits, you will know that I don't actually take tarot seriously, or I didn't. Now, my journey into tarot came from quite a skeptical background to begin with. I have a cousin, Anna, and she could connect with spirits, technically medium or a spiritual medium. And I always used to be running to her saying, what do you think to this? Pull your card for that, tap into it. And most of the time she would give me some piece of information. But this one time she suggested I buy a deck of tarot cards and have a dabble and play around with it myself. We had actually been going to an open circle, as it's called, in the Spiritualist Church in Coventry. The place, Parkside, is no longer there, but we used to go there from the late 90s, very infrequently, to going quite regularly in about 2003, I think it was. We were having annual readings ourselves, and a lot of what she was told came true, and quite a bit of the information I was given as well became true, actually happened. And when she called me out and she said, look, get a deck, you can pull some cards for yourself. So always up for a challenge. I thought, right, I'm going to do a reading. And I never do things by halves. I set up a camera. I got together in my head how I was going to work it out, how to do it. And I sat down and I did a tarot reading for her. Now, if you go back and you watch the first Mystic Prosecco reading, the pilot episode was never meant to be aired, and it is now on YouTube, both on my own channel and the original channel I posted it on, Masquerading Productions. It was originally tongue-in-cheek reading, but a few people that watched it said that they could actually take it as their information, it was a message for them. And I was like, nah, I was just joking around and kidding around. But the more readings I was doing, the more it became apparent that there is something there. Either I was giving information to certain people and they could take it, or I was actually going quite cold with the reading, which I now know, as it is for me anyway, that is information coming from spirit. And at certain times my hands will go cold or my whole body will go cold. My curiosity into the spirit world was really strong back in 1993. I'd had a Romany Gypsy, proper Romany Gypsy, turn up on the doorstep, and she started feeding me this lace into my hands, this lucky lace, as she kept saying it. And she was holding my hand rubbing it at the same time, giving me this lace, and it seemed like it was on an endless kind of rope, reel, I mean. And she just kept feeding me more and more of this lace, just this lucky, lucky lace. And she was telling me things that eventually did happen. But she was also telling me stuff that I hadn't told anybody. I mean, nobody knew. And some of the information was very close to my heart, things that were quite emotional. And luckily for me, nothing that she said was anything bad. And I do believe that they cannot tell you anything bad and they cannot give you bad news. But just like anything, it depends on the person's frame of mind, how they take it. So she said a few things like, I can see you getting married. You'll have a ring on your finger when I come back to see you. I can see you buying a brand new red car. Now, this is where things get really, really bizarre because, yes, at that time, well, a matter of months later, had to get a brand new car, and the option came up to get a brand new little 106, and it was red. It wasn't the colour I was going for, but it was red. She didn't come back when I was engaged and then got married, which was very puzzling. But now I'm divorced and I have no ring on my hand. But at this point in time, I am actually planning to get a new red car. So maybe the ring is yet to appear. Maybe she will reappear into my life. Who knows? But I wrote everything down. And when I went back and looked back over the years, almost everything she said came true. The only part that didn't come true was the part of when she sees me next or when she returns to me next. Now, depending on your thoughts, on this spiritual path, she might return back to me physically at my doorstep, or she might return back as some kind of spirit guide, some kind of spirit or guardian or something like that, and she would come and actually see me and she'll return to me. But anyway, that was 1993, and at the time I was working for Coventry Building Society in Coventry as a cashier. And there was one gentleman that used to come in to the branch, and we used to fight for who was actually going to serve him. His name was Mr. Middleton, and he was a medium, and he would give whoever he served a little reading. He'd say something, and we would kind of fight over who was going to serve him. We'd purposefully be a long time with one customer and hope that he would be the next one, and it would be to our desk. But this one day, he came in and there was only 3 of us on the desk because it was quiet and it was lunchtime. And he came over to the 3 of us and he kind of looked around the 3 of us and said, "You're all going to have a day off soon. You're all going to be going to a funeral and it's coming up soon." And he said, "It won't be a surprise. It will be okay." So the 3 of us kind of stood there, jaws on the floor like. So I went home and I told my mum. And she always disregarded anybody else's information unless it was her own. She was, the real thing. Anybody else's information, she poo-pooed it. So straight away she said, "Well, of course you know why he said you're going to have a day off work, because it's coming up for Easter and everybody gets a day off work." Unfortunately, on the day of the Mother's Day that year, my grandfather, my granddad Kubiak, had a massive heart attack and died instantly. And 2 other people at work who Mr. Middleton had been speaking to that day, we went back into work that week and we all said around that weekend that we knew of somebody that had died very suddenly. Yes, everyone that had died that weekend was old. It wasn't a surprise, let's say, but obviously it was a huge shock to us. Now, losing my father's father was obviously a huge thing for me, watching my father go through all of that. But he was right. Mr. Middleton was correct without a shadow of a doubt. And as much as I wanted to question my mother, she wasn't having it. She just said, "Oh, well, you could say that about anything. I could say somebody's going to die, someone's going to have this happen to them or that happen to them," even though she was spiritual herself. So anyway, years later, and I'd still got Mr. Middleton's name in my head and what happened, how he kind of came in and gave us that information. I was quizzical, but at the same time, I was thinking, I want to be able to do that. How can I do that? How can I train to do it? which is how Anna and I got to find out about the Spiritualist Church and start going to the open circles. There you would train about grounding and protecting and do a short meditation and see if anybody around the group could actually take that information, close the circle down, close down yourselves, and that was it for the day. Anyway, roll on to 2 years ago, and there was a strange introduction that came about, which blew my mind. And to this day, I still cannot believe how it happened. So my youngest daughter was going through a lot at school, and I was in two minds whether or not to take her out of school. And my friend Angela, I've known for many, many years, 25 years, she said, here's a number for someone called Elaine. I suggest that you speak to her. She's a counsellor and a healer. I thought, okay, let's give Elaine a call. And the first phone call with her, just to discuss my youngest daughter, went on for 45 minutes because she was giving me bits of information as I was telling her about her problems. And I said, would you be able to come and do some healing for her and some counselling? And she said, well, yeah, she's open to doing that, but I'll come around anyway. She doesn't need to speak to me. She says, I totally understand. I've got children myself on the spectrum. And she said, I think I can actually help her. So anyway, I said, can I just check I've got your name right and everything? Yeah, Elaine Middleton. Okay, made a note of that in my phone. And later on that night, I thought, Middleton, where have I heard that name from before? So on the morning that she was due to come round, it just dawned on me, Mr. Middleton, the psychic. I wonder if they're related. So anyway, forgot about it when Elaine was here. And when she was here, she did the healing, and she was then giving me bits of information afterwards for myself. And she did me a reading. It was a mediumship reading. She originally was saying she could do me a tarot card reading, but she didn't have her cards with her. And I didn't dare let on that I got my own cards, and I got quite an addiction to card decks myself. So just as she's leaving, she said, I do think you should take her out of school. I think it will do her the world of good. I've got a friend who's now living in Somerset, used to live in Coventry, but she homeschools her own children. I said, oh, what's her name? And she said, her name's Anna. I said, Anna Braithwaite? And she said, yes. And I said, that's my cousin. And she said, oh my gosh, I've known her for years. And I said, well, she's my cousin. I've known her all my life. And then straight away, it was like, wow, this friendship was meant to happen. Anyway, I don't think I mentioned about Mr. Middleton until either the second time I saw her or maybe through a text message. And I found out it's actually her uncle. He has since passed. I believe he passed about 10 years ago now. And it was just bizarre that I knew him, her uncle, and now I know her. And Elaine had said to me if I was interested in following through on my mediumship and my spiritual path, did I want to go to her open circle and her workshops that she was doing? And of course I said yes. To me, I was blown away. The fact that I'd wanted to know more about the spiritual side of things, and Mr. Middleton had sparked that desire, let's say, and also the Gypsy that had turned up on the house back in 93. And it was an opportunity I couldn't dismiss. I had to do it. Now, I have done many training courses and one-to-ones with numerous different mediums and psychics. And while I was in France, I was actually doing training via Facebook groups and Zoom calls, and even coming back to the UK to do a one-to-one with various different people. And although I can't do mediumship, and I say I can't do mediumship in quotes, I am more of an intuitive. So when I do readings, it's what I'm picking up on, it's what I'm sensing, what I'm feeling. I don't actually know where those messages are coming, but I know that they're coming from the other side. They're coming from either my higher being or something externally from me in a energy kind of way. So when I started dabbling in tarot, and after the first Mystic Prosecco video that I did, because I couldn't do it under my own name, because to me it was just a joke, I started doing more videos under the name of Mystic Prosecco. And each one that I was doing, although it was extremely tongue-in-cheek, I was obviously picking up information, and it must have been coming from somewhere. So there's a whole bank of 20 videos that I have just repurposed recently and put up on my channel. And I do connect with spirits. I don't actually connect with physical alcoholic spirits, because I would never mix spirit and any kind of mediumship or divination with doing that kind of thing. Just like I wouldn't dabble with an Ouija board, or I wouldn't do anything that kind of way and connect the two things together. Even though the readings I used to give were sarcastic, satirical, comedy, whatever you want to call them, because people kept saying that they could take the information I was given, I did actually spend more time in learning the tarot properly. Now, this shows because a lot of people that have come to me, friends obviously, I never charge for tarot because it is just fun hobby for me. When they come to me, I do take it seriously, and I do ground and protect just in case, and I do open up just in case. And the information I do give, I've had numerous people come back to me and say it's either happened within days or weeks of the information I've given them. And because of that, I started buying more and more different decks that maybe had different pictures, imagery on, different decks that I was drawn to, different decks that I was connected to. Then myself and my youngest daughter have gone down the path of learning about crystals and crystal energy. And the way I look at it is everything in the universe is an energy. So if somebody is feeling low, you can pick up on the fact that they're feeling low, or they bring you down to their level. That is their energetic frequency at that time. If you're happy, joking, laughing, like the life and soul of the party one day, everybody that sees you and meets you and talks to you will come up to that same level. And again, it's an energy, it's a frequency. So when you're dealing with crystals, I do believe that each crystal is giving off a different energy. Now, my youngest daughter we always joke about it, she always used to bring half of the playground back with her. Now, bearing in mind, my daughters were brought up and went to school in France, and the playground was typically concrete to begin with. Then years later, it got resurfaced into tarmac. But the concrete and bits and pieces, God knows where she was finding these stones, pebbles and things from. They weren't crystals, but to her, there was some kind of attraction there. And it was no surprise that years later, she has an addiction to crystals. But to her, she goes with whatever she's drawn to. So if I take her into a crystal shop, she won't go for a particular crystal saying, what does this one do? She will go to it because she needs that crystal at that time. So one of the ones recently, can't remember the name of the crystal, but it was an orange-based crystal. It was a huge, great big piece. And she just went straight into the shop after kind of like darting her eyes around the place. She went straight for it. I said, this is the one. I said, well, just hold on. You know, there's loads of other crystals. She went round the shop. She went straight back to it. She just picked it up. And she just wouldn't let go of it. And she wouldn't let me ask the woman in the shop what exactly this crystal was with regards to its properties and its abilities, let's say. So I had to go back a few days later and ask her. And when she told me what this crystal did, it made sense because that is what my daughter needed at that time. Hugely, intensely needed. But like I said, I can't remember what the crystal was. So whereas my youngest has an addiction for crystals, and every birthday and every Christmas I always get her something that's related to crystals. She doesn't need any more books, but it could be a crystal gemstone on a charm or a necklace or bracelet, or literally a piece of a certain crystal. But for her, she's attracted and drawn to crystals. For me, I'm drawn and attracted to tarot cards and oracle cards. Two of my best friends, Nicole and Heather, actually joke about the number of cards I've got. Am I getting another deck? And I said I like to keep it in line with the number of years there are in this century. So at the minute, I've got 2024. I haven't got 2024 decks of cards, but it does sound funny because I'm close to having about 80 decks. Do I use them all? No. There's a few decks that I'm no longer drawn to, but I do have an attachment to them, so I probably won't ever get rid of them or sell them. But there's obviously decks that I've bought over the years because I know that they're out of print and I've managed to get them really cheaply, so they have been used before. But I have cleansed those decks and used them, but maybe I just don't connect with them, or maybe it's just not the time to use those decks. My go-to deck of cards is the traditional Rider-Waite deck that Anna told me to get many, many years ago. The first deck I got was called One World Tarot, and it just had some amazing pictures of artistic style planets and like constellations and things like this. I was just drawn to it, and it makes me go cold whenever I see that deck, but I can't read it. There's nothing on there without knowing tarot that is going to help me out apart from my intuition, my gut feeling. So my second deck was the traditional Rider-Waite tarot deck, and I have a photographic memory. So if somebody says to me the Four of Cups, straight away I can picture the Four of Cups in my mind. If somebody says to me the Nine of Wands, I can see that Nine of Wands in my head. By having that photographic memory, it's allowed me to read other cards. So I can imagine the imagery of the Rider-Waite tarot deck and then apply it with any other imagery and symbolism that I'm picking up on the other cards. That is how I read. It's a combination of the images on the card. It's a combination of what I'm seeing, feeling, sensing, tasting, any other bits and pieces that's going on in my physical body at that point in time when I'm actually doing the reading. The oracle cards give a bit more information, maybe some keyword or some extra clue to what the reading is about or what the querent is looking to find out. And all together, when it's all pulled together, that is how I work. Now, some people do actually hear voices, see spirits. I can only say hand on heart that I've only ever seen two spirits, and they were probably in the same year. The first time I saw spirit was straight after going to an open circle with Anna, and I'd taken my friend Karen, and we'd come back to where I was living at the time in Coventry. We were discussing about how she'd always seen something out the corner of her eye, almost like somebody was looking through a door frame when she was growing up. We were still grounded and protected because we'd done a bit more work as we'd come home. She asked if this person, this thing that she was seeing over the years from when she was a child, if they could actually show themselves to her. And we both saw this person. It was an outline, I can almost picture it in my mind's eye now. It was an outline of somebody who I would say was very much from the 1920s, I think, but was wearing a linen outfit. But it was as though we couldn't see much past their knees. But it was this brownish kind of looking linen outfit and longish hair. And they kind of almost like floated towards us. And then the minute we both saw them, she absolutely squealed away. And at that second, light bulb went in the lamp. The lights came on because I jumped up and switched the lights on. And this apparition, this ghost, this vision, whatever it was, just disappeared. But it all happened so quick, within seconds. And we both kind of sat there and I said, "Did you see him?" And she said, "Yes." But she literally hid her head behind a cushion and she said, "I'm so scared now, I don't want to go home." We obviously talked about it and she calmed down and she did accept that she'd seen this person. And I said, "Look, you wanted to see him. You obviously weren't prepared, or you were surprised that you'd seen him." It made it a little bit easier for her, but whether or not things changed, I don't know. Whether or not she ever saw him again, I don't know. Because not long after that, we lost touch. About 12 months later, probably less than that, I did see another spirit, and it was of somebody who took their own life. And it was on the day it happened. And it was probably an hour or so after we believed that they passed. And it was, the only way I can explain it is if you've ever seen the cartoon of Peanuts and Snoopy, that kind of dirt bubble that's over the top or of around one of the characters, and it looks kind of like scribbled out, but it looks like it's moving. That's what it looked like. It looked like it was almost like something scribbled out, but it was very grey and just kind of like floating within my bedroom, which is where I was at the time. And I had to step back, and I almost fell back onto the bed when I saw it, because it was there. I could see it, but I was kind of frozen. I didn't know what to do. Obviously knew I couldn't interact with it, but I knew it was a ghost or spirit. And moments later, I took the phone call from somebody who said he had taken his own life. And I said, yeah, I think he's just been here to say goodbye. And that was extremely weird. But apart from those two interactions, I've never actually seen spirit. And I know some people can see literally their outlines. They can interact with them. Obviously, if you're here listening to this podcast, you know about spiritual things and about this kind of thing. But they were my only two encounters. And I do believe that at some point I have said out loud, and probably in my own mind, don't appear to me, don't show me yourself, because I will be frightened to death. And that could be why I'm not seeing them, because I don't want to see them. I have also trained in the angelic realm as well. And one of the first courses I went on was while I was in France. A lot of it has actually happened while I've been in France, the training that is. And I trained with two different people online about the angelic realm, and either about connecting with angels and doing angel readings, to knowing how to interpret information from the angelic realm, or knowing about the difference of the different angels. I am still in touch with both of those people now. So I must have done those courses 8-9 years ago now. Although I don't feel a connection with the angelic realm, I understand it. I can't say that's who or where I'm getting my information from. The one thing that has always stood out in my mind throughout this entire journey is my recurring dreams. And I say dreams with the emphasis on it because I don't think they're nightmares, but where I'm seeing or connecting, or I'm up in UFOs. Now, these recurring dreams, it's as though I am part of these alien family, let's say. I'm taken up onto their spaceship. I am different places around the entire universe. It's the only way I can explain it. But it's not like I'm being abducted. It's not like I'm being tested on. It's as though I am one of them, whoever they are. I've yet to find out. I haven't channeled them. I haven't been under hypnosis to see who it is or anything like that. I just have that connection, let's say. And when I have meditated, some of my deepest meditations, when I have connected up to source, as I call it, the universe, God, whatever you decide to call it, but I call it the universe. When I've connected up, I kind of shoot off upwards out of my body, and I actually go into a UFO. And I'm just going cold just even talking about it and thinking about it. And it's there that I will actually speak to somebody in like a side room. Bizarre, because it looks like a little coffee room that's just set up for me, so I'm not scared. And there's a coffee machine there and a table. And there's usually only ever one entity, let's say, that's there. And I get my information from there. I think is why my first ever deck of cards, this One World, I was really drawn to. But I can't read because for some reason I'm not understanding the cards. But that principle of there's more to our universe than we know about. There's more to life than we know about. And everybody's soul journey is different. If that's what they want to open up to. So to me, soul, as this podcast is called, Soul Walks, our walk with our soul energy, or our journey on this planet, encompasses so many different things. It could be connecting with spirits, not in a Mystic Prosecco way, but in connecting with those other energies. It could be literally connecting or seeing spirits. It could be contacting the other side. It could be just intuitive information. Everything is an energy, which is what I believe. And it kind of branches off into the realm of energetic frequencies and energy as a whole within the universe, which then leads into the law of attraction, synchronicities, all different things like that. And this is where I want to take the Soul Walks part of these podcasts, to delve into that side of our life and our lives' journeys, because it is so intriguing to find out everybody else's journeys, what they believe in, what they have learned, what they have to share with us. In future podcasts, I will actually be interviewing Elaine Middleton and Sophie Rose. Both have been part of my spiritual journey and my soul's journey so far. And in other episodes, I'll be dropping in more information about tarot, working with energies, law of attraction, anything to do with aliens and everything else that is the unknown. Thank you for joining me on this podcast about the Soul Walks side of life on my journey, and I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to follow me to find out when the next episodes are going to be released. And if you've not listened already, go back and take a listen to the previous episode, which was my introduction to my Tech Talks side of the podcast. Thank you again, and I'll see you on the next episode.